What's going on, guys? Today's video is going to be a little bit different. With the end of Warzone 1 coming, I wanted to go through all the best metas that we've seen throughout Warzone since the day it released up until the day that Warzone 2 is getting released. I'm really curious to see if you guys agree with this. I want to see what guns you've maybe put in there that I didn't, and are you going to miss any of these guns when we go into Warzone 2? Hope you guys enjoy this video, and if you do, make sure to subscribe, like, hit that bell notification so you never miss another video. Let's get straight into it. At number 10 on the list, we've got one of the most OG guns on this list, and that is the Modern Warfare MP5, specifically the hipfire build. The Modern Warfare MP5 still stands its ground pretty well to this day, but it's nowhere near as good as it used to be back in the day when it was first released. If he wasn't running around with this SMG, he was instantly at a disadvantage. It was by far the best SMG for Modern Warfare. It still held pretty steady when the Cold War integration came in, and obviously you still get the odd person running around with it. Now we've got all three integrations. There was nothing like the hipfire MP5 back in the day. This thing was brilliant up close, and it just felt like you was aiming down sight with that little green laser pointing at your enemy. Number 9 on the list, I've got one of the newest SMGs on the block, and that is the Vanguard PPSH. Now the reason I've put this in is just because I felt like a meta that has dominated should be a gun that I felt if you wasn't using it, you're at a massive disadvantage. And that's how I felt if I wasn't using the Vanguard PPSH and someone else was. When this thing first got released, it had an insanely quick TTK and the hipfire was absolutely mental on it. Pair that up with a 70 round mag and insane fire rate. Obviously this thing got nerfed pretty quickly, but it is still pretty good to this day. Obviously the TTK just isn't quite what it was when it's released. Number 8 on the list, we go back to Modern Warfare, and we've got our first shotgun on the list, and that is the Origin 12. Now if you never went through the Origin 12 phase, I'd consider yourself very lucky, because this was one of the most annoying shotguns that you could come up against. This thing killed in 2 to 3 shots. You could put a pretty good mag size on it. The range was pretty decent for a shotgun. And of course, it's semi-automatic, so you can just spam it at your heart's content. Just to make it even better, this was actually a ground loot gun during the time that it was meta. So of course, if you didn't have it loaded up, you could just pick one off the floor and you were ready to go. Number 7, this is a gun that I had to put on the list, and that is of course the Grau. Again, the Grau stands its ground pretty well today. It's nowhere near as good as it used to be, but it's definitely still a great gun. And that's because it was just so good when it got released. This thing did not move when it first got released, and the damage was a little bit higher before it got nerfed, which means that even if you wasn't the best shot, you'd have a pretty easy time getting some long range kills with the Grau. Not only that, as you all know, the iron sights on the Grau are so good, probably one of the cleanest in Warzone, so you could bang on a few attachments to make your ADS quicker or to make your recoil control even better. This thing's had some nerfs over time. The reason for that is just because it was so good. Number 6 on the list, we've got our second and final Vanguard gun, and that is the UGM8. Had to put this gun on the list just because it is being overrunning Warzone since people found out the build for it. I didn't think it was going to be as good as it was. I tried it out personally, and this gun just felt like it just deleted people on a click. The recoil was non-existent. You had 100 to 120 round mag on it, and the damage was absolutely insane. You could literally cross-map people, and before they even knew that they was getting shot, they'd already be dead. And again, it took quite a while for them to nerf it, but they're trying to bring it in line again. It's still pretty good now, but to be honest, this is one of those guns where I'll be glad when it's gone. Number 5, I've got 2 guns, and that's just because when they were in the meta, they were very, very similar, and that is the AUG and the M16 from Cold War. Now, the burst fire meta was a dark time for Warzone. Everyone was running around with these things, and they were just brutal. If you could land your shots, you were probably guaranteed a 2 burst kill. And before the nerf, the bursts were even quicker than they are now, so that meant that you were going to die fairly quickly. Honestly, it didn't really matter which one you chose. I think the AUG maybe slightly edged the M16, but they were both insanely good. These got a well-deserved nerf after their time at the top, but it was definitely one of them guns that just dominated Warzone. Coming in at number 4, just outside of the top 3, we've got one of my personal favourite guns, the Bruin. Now, the Bruin was fantastic back in the day. It's still pretty good now, but it's nowhere near close to the meta. The great thing about the Bruin when it was in the meta is, yeah, it was a light machine gun, but you could slap on a no stock, that 60 round mag to make it feel like the mobility of an AR. And you just felt like you had that raw stopping power of an LMG still. The thing had virtually no recoil, and it would kill insanely quickly. You pretty much saw everybody running around with this gun in tournaments and everything, and it was just insanely good. Eventually, though, as always, they did end up nerfing it, mostly on the mobility side, just to stop you from able to run round with an LMG like it was, I don't know, a 2p piece in your pocket. But I must say, it was definitely a fun gun to use while it was in the meta. Taking the number 3 spot, the bronze medal, we've got the second shotgun on the list, and that is none other than the Doof Doof. If you don't know what the Doof Doof is, then you're probably glad that you don't know what the Doof Doof is, because if you've been killed by this thing, you probably got angry quite a few times. Of course, the Doof Doof's real name is the R90 shotgun. Obviously, it got this nickname because of the weird way that it shoots. It shoots the 2 shotgun shells at a time and then does the pump action, and then you can shoot another 2. What someone found out with the R90 shotgun is that if you put fire rounds on that, then you could pretty much delete anybody within about a 20-meter radius of you. This meant that for quite a long time in Warzone, if you was at a building and you didn't have a Doof Doof, you was probably going to die to a Doof Doof. I remember using this thing. I'm not ashamed to say it. I had a lot of fun with it, and I can tell you used to get a hell of a lot of hot mics with it. Going in at number 2 is my favorite gun of all time. I know I said the Bruin was one of my favorites, but this is definitely my favorite gun of all time, and that is none other than the FFAR. Now, the FFAR recently got a buff. I made a video on that if you want to go check that out, and it feels really good again. If you've never experienced the FFAR in its prime, then I'm telling you, you're missing out. Obviously, the FFAR is an assault rifle, but this thing had the best of all worlds from the assault rifle category and the SMG. And that's because when the FFAR was first released, the recoil was super easy to control and had a big mag like an AR. However, it had the mobility of an SMG, and the strafe speed was absolutely incredible on it. The strafe speed that you could build it out to when you're shooting meant that you could go side to side and make it an extremely hard target for you to hit while you were shooting. But rightly so, it had its time and it needed to get nerfed because no one was using any other weapons apart from the FFAR. And then coming in at number 1, I don't know how I could put any other gun at the number 1 spot apart from this one, and that is the DMR-14. Now, the reason this takes the number 1 spot for me is just because I can remember the point where the DMR-14 was at its best. It was literally unstoppable. For all of you that played Verdansk, you'll know that Verdansk was quite an open map in places. Now, the problem with that when the DMR was the king was this thing was a 2-shot headshot or 2 shots to the body, 1 shot to the head, which meant it was a 3-shot to kill. And if you look at some of the older clips of the DMR, 3 shots would take almost less than half a second to pull off. I personally wasn't a fan of this meta. It was extremely frustrating because you just get people posted up in a spot with a DMR and just delete you straight away, and there was literally nothing you could do about it. Rightly so, though, it did get nerfed into the ground. I don't think there's any gun that's ever compared to the DMR, and hopefully there'll be nothing as broken than that in Warzone 2. Anyway, guys, that is my tier list for Warzone 1. I think that these were the best 10 guns that we've ever had, and this is in their prime. Obviously not now, there's obviously better guns than them now, but in their prime, when they were meta, this is what I believe was the best. I'm curious to see what you guys think, how you would rank the guns. Let me know down in the comments if my list is the same as yours, if you'd move anything about, and what guns you loved using, and what guns you hated dying by. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.